Man, we're right on time. Hey, if you got this part of the video, you've got the live unedited edition. Home Gadget Geeks Thursday night, the 1st of December. Hard to believe we're already in December 2022. It's 8 p.m. in the Central Time Zone. If you've got this any other time than that, you've just got the recorded version on YouTube. And hang tight. We'll get started here in just a second. Mike Wieger is back. Mike, always great to have you back. It feels like home when you're here. Thanks for
I
coming
love
out.
being back. It feels like a normal Thursday now that I'm back. It's a lot of fun. Although I did have to go find this microphone. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I came down here. When I game, I use this headset with the built-in mic, and I had put this away for a long time. And I was like, I don't even know where I put that. And I came down, I freaked out because I know you want high quality audio. So I had to go. I was like, he's not
I
going to go
appreciate
for the
that.
headset microphone.
I'd have probably gone for it, but I appreciate you doing the regular microphone.
Yeah,
That's kind of
like
how we
regular.
know you.
Yeah,
So,
it is. Yeah,
it's kind of how we know you. I have the tabletop fireplace going on
I
tonight.
love it.
Doesn't that just make you feel warm? Just
Feels cozy. Feels nice and cozy.
I did this today. I did a podcast today at work, and I put this on, and I'd never done that in that audience before, and they were like, "Oh, we really like the fireplace going."
It's a nice ambiance. I got the blanket on my legs. I'm ready to go. I'm feeling
it's a little
nice.
chilly down there in the basement.
Yeah, a little chilly.
Before we talk about pours, how's the basement? You've been working. You left working on the basement. Are they still working on it? How's
Left
it going?
working on the basement. To be honest, we haven't done much work. So we did get. I can't remember where we left off. Got the window installed. So the window is ready.
Egress.
So we have egress
like
window.
Egress.
Yeah. So now the basement is prepped for that. We've just been in the stage of honestly, our kids now more than ever have been down here playing like roughhousing, throwing balls and everything. And like all of a sudden now, because my oldest Emmett is 6, Harrison's turning 5 this month. They've been down here more than ever. And all of a sudden it created this not much rush to get it done. And actually what we did, so upstairs in the nursery, we had a nursery for Harrison, our youngest, but now ever since last Christmas, they've been in bunk beds in one room. So what we actually did was we have Hannah's in-laws, her parents in all the time. And the big push for the basement was to have a place for them to have a room and a bathroom. We actually just took and we put a bed up in that nursery and it works great. And so like we've been in this like, hey, if the boys are using this downstairs and if they were using it the way they were today with a finished basement, we'd be a little worried because they'd be putting holes in the wall. But now we can send them down here and they don't worry about it. So a little bit of change in priorities a little bit where we're not as rushed to get this done because we put the bed up there and the in-laws have been fine. And mainly for Hannah's parents, for walking up and down the stairs in the dark and the knees, just making sure they don't have to do that. So now that that's not a factor, it's been kind of a little bit of a non-issue for us. So something we're still going to do, but just not as much of a rush. So you still see the same background and I still get my little corner in the basement where I get to game and do all that.
We're going to talk about it later, but I've been building this VR/gaming rig. And
I didn't know it was VR based. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love it.
You can ask me some about it because I've thought through some of the things I want to do. Anyways, I don't really have a good gaming monitor. Everything I have is old. I mean, I have a lot of monitors, but they're old monitors.
Yeah, they're 60 hertz, not high refresh rate. Yeah.
For work, they're perfect. For what I do use them for, they're perfect. But if I'm going to build this and I'm going to have a gaming rig, so I've been looking at monitors. We'll talk a little bit about later. But
all right,
it's one of those kinds of things where you think like, okay, how do I rearrange the desk so I can kind of podcast here, game here? So I was doing podcasting and then you would rotate 90 degrees and that's work. What I want is podcasting, gaming at 45 and then work at 90.
Love it.
And that's kind of so I'm trying to decide, do I go with another 34-inch ultra wide, maybe do 1440? We'll talk about it during the show.
Okay.
But so I'll have some questions for you on the gaming side of things.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not that big of a gamer, but like Flight Simulator's gotten so good. There's some things that I want to do. Like I don't want to do shooters because I'm not that good at that kind of stuff. But like Flight Simulator's gotten really good.
And for sure.
Of course, VR. So we'll talk about that here.
Okay.
I got some NorCal wine, which is really. You drinking anything? Did you bring anything down? You just got water?
I got one Busch Light. Even worse than the past, Jim.
No, it's okay.
I've degraded since the last we talked.
No, it works. It works.
Yeah.
Have you been doing any craft beer? Have you had anything? Anything?
Not
You've
as much.
enjoying? You
No.
enjoyed the bottle of Jefferson's
I
that I
was
brought
just gonna
over.
say you got me on a little bit of a bourbon/whiskey kick. So when I left the show, you got me a really nice bottle of Jefferson's, and I really started to enjoy that. I tried to eat every little bit out of that, and then you got me a little bit of kick. So been enjoying some other ones, trying to enjoy them. I actually like it in coffee, is what I've learned. I do like it as a little morning, little pick me up on the weekends. Just put splash a little bit in the coffee, and the wife has also enjoyed a little bit of that as well. So getting her into that, but no, other than that, I've actually Bush Light has kind of become a staple. It's weird. It's just we're in Nebraska, guys. Just don't judge me, but we're in Nebraska. A lot of us, if you're not into craft beer, you're either doing Bud Light or Bush Light, and so I've been a big Bush Light fan lately.
No worries.
You can have
there.
20 of them, and it's like drinking water. So it's it's great.
Yeah,
it's one of
it
those things you
keeps
can
you
drink all
hydrated.
day, and it keeps you hydrated.
Sometimes when I give blood, then they have Bud Lights or they have
Bush Light,
whatever,
yeah.
Bush
It's
Light
just
in the fridge.
get your refrigerator.
Like,
Yeah,
did you want
hydrated.
some water with it? Did
Yeah.
you want some canned water?
Exactly.
Yeah. There's if you like bourbon in coffee, you'll like bourbon cream as well. So there's some this is in an area, when you think of Irish cream, right? You think of Bailey's, right?
Yep.
And there's been some Bailey's competitors. Bailey's is $30 a bottle, 35 now, I think this year. You can get that's a little pricey for cream, right? You kind of go, I could get, get a $5 thing of heavy whipped cream or creamer at the store, and yeah, okay, it tastes a little like whiskey, but so I did find like a $15 bottle of, and I forget the name of it. It's sitting up on, we're going to use it for Christmas, but bourbon cream in, Buffalo Trace, which is real popular.
Yep.
They have a bourbon cream. You'll spend 20 or $25 for it. So we're going to give that a try, but that's another, Mike. That's another one we do. ABV is not so high on the bourbon creams, and you kind of just creamer and a little taste of bourbon at the same time. So that's something I think, like I said, Baker's has got a version for like $13.99, which I'm going to give it a try. So not a bad. I was going to try and look that up and see what it was. I was walking through picking up meat last night for some beef jerky. It's going to be really nice tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
And so I was getting ready to make some beef jerky. And I saw that and I'm like, oh, okay, here's my Christmas. Because typically we do Bailey's, but I've been trying other creams just to see how that works. Hey, if you're joining us in the chat, I see Brian, I see Joe, I see Bob, Tony. Welcome. Good to see you guys. Bob, thanks for Bob and Ken and Joe. I think, Joe, were you there? Maybe not. Join me Wednesday. I put the PC build together and I just live streamed it for a couple hours, Mike. We'll talk about that here during the show. So
one distillery you'll have to try is Holiday. So Holiday is actually located in Weston, Kansas. You can actually just drive down to it. It's the reason I recommend it. I've been to it just southeast of Atchison, Kansas. So you could head down there. You can go do a little tour of the distillery. So funny, if you guys been in college recently, they actually are the same distillery. Their bottom end is McCormick's. So I'm sure a bunch of you guys have had McCormick's vodka, right? Yeah. The bottom end, but their high end stuff. So when I went down there, I was kind of joking, like, oh man, guys, this is like the bottom of the barrel. Their high end stuff. So they make some great Irish cream. And so that cream is fantastic. Great bourbons. So if you're near the Omaha, Kansas City, St. Joe area, that is one definitely worthwhile. So that was actually a distillery that was shut down a long time ago. They actually brought it back. And so their first tapping, I think, of their bourbon might have been actually this year or last year. Because they had started a few years ago. They had put it all in the warehouse. I think their first tapping was either last year or this year. So they're relatively back new to the game under the Holiday brand, HOLLADAY. But that's a really, really good brand. My dad and I really like the cream side of that. So you mentioned the cream, putting in coffees and everything. And my dad actually makes ice cream, and he'll use their cream as part of his ice cream. So you'll get a really good bourbon ice cream out of that. So it's delicious. Ooh, yeah. Real good.
Oh,
yeah. Yep. Yeah. Imagine having a little ice cream and getting a little, and then you can pour a little bourbon on top just to add a little to it. And it's already infused with that bourbon cream. Oh man, it's good. Yeah. Some good stuff.
Joe, I did record that live stream. He said he was not there for the live stream, but I did throw that the link to it. I do throw the link to it. It's not terribly exciting. It was probably more fun to be there in person, but yeah, I guess so. Weston, Missouri? No,
Weston,
Missouri.
Kansas.
Weston, Kansas. So how far from here?
Well, It is actually technically Missouri. It's right on that
Okay.
border. It's always hard for me to
It's
know
down there in the
which lane it is.
so it's in Kansas City,
Yeah.
basically.
So west of Missouri. So when you're driving I-29 straight down to Kansas City, it's just, I guess, on the west side of I-29 then, because it's on the Missouri side. Yeah,
We
delicious.
went out to Templeton Rye
Oh,
Distillery up in Templeton, Iowa.
yeah.
90 minutes or
How long
so.
of a drive is that? Okay, an
90
hour and a
minutes.
half. Okay,
Yeah. It's
this would be about the
$10.
same distance.
$10. A really good tour. And then I think right now they like end of November the laws loosened up and they can now open their bar. They could before only have you taste little. Now
Oh,
you can
interesting.
now you can buy full things
Okay.
down there. So they it is a huge middle finger to prohibition. That whole thing down there, they're like the whole thing is like during prohibition, we brewed the whole time.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it is pretty
I always like
pretty
those
fun, yeah.
because, like, when we went down to it holiday, you can actually taste the I don't even know what you call it. There's a name for it. The stuff on top, like, so they open up the still, and you can like taste that stuff on the top. There's a name for it. I'm totally drawing a blank, but I love that, seeing the whole distillery process, and you get like the yeast essentially on top. You
Yeah.
can like taste it, and it has that taste. It's so, I love learning about the whole process. That's what I loved about going to holiday, was like, you got to like, hey, at this stage of the process, here, stick your finger in, like, take a taste. This is how it tastes at that stage of the process before it's gone through X, Y, and Z. And oh man, I find it so interesting.
Yeah.
Isn't it crazy that a bunch of crazy guys back in the day, right? Like trying to make
For
alcohol
sure.
legally. They're the ones who came up with this process that's now everyone's just in love with.
Oh, for sure. Guys, if you I noticed there was some conversation in chat about the live stream from Tuesday about putting the PC together. If you want to watch it, I dropped the link to it. I think that's the right one. I dropped the link to it in chat. If you want to go watch the recorded version of the live stream, it's on StreamYard, not YouTube. It'll take you to a StreamYard session. StreamYard's now hosting their own videos.
Oh, really?
As well as YouTube.
So
yeah.
that build is hosted on StreamYard, not YouTube.
It's on StreamYard.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
so you can go out and watch it if you want. It's some folks joined me in the beginning, and then I lost everybody for a while, so I'm just kind of talking to myself. And then towards the end, some more folks joined back in, so it's kind of fun. I definitely cut my finger. I've got a badge of honor. I cut my took the motherboard out of the
And that's how
case,
you did it?
Cut my finger.
Not even
I
on the
was like-
case. Usually it's on like on the case.
I
Like
know.
the cases
No, it's
I
on the
buy are super
motherboard.
cheap, and that's why I always-
Motherboard's got some super sharp things
Yeah.
on the backside, and it just
I'm excited to talk to you about that tonight, because I think this is the first time you've built a new PC in a while.
It has been a long time.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. Well, we should probably stop dancing around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's kick it off.
So little NorCal, I had a little NorCal wine, which I finished while we were talking about it. This was the wine that when we had the Wine Spies on winespies.com, this was one of the wines I picked from it. Really, really good. The disadvantage is these flash sale wine places, you can't, like, oftentimes
Can't
you
get it
can't
again.
find them. Yeah, you can't get it again.
Yeah.
I couldn't find it. It was pretty good. I'd probably pay 12 or 15 for it if it was available locally. But then some Pinhook rye, which I've got here in the Glencairn.
Ooh, look at
And
that.
yeah, this is going to be delicious tonight as we're going here.
Okay.
So
There we go.
Pinhook, by the way, $24 or $20 bottle that I got at Hy-Vee. They were clearancing them out. Pinhook it was really weird that they were clearancing them, because Pinhook is traditionally $40, $45 a bottle. And they're
Oh, okay.
clearancing it out for 24, 25, and I had an $8 like credit at Hy-Vee, so I picked up the thing for like, $20.
Nice.
And yeah, it was super good. So we've been really cinnamony. If you think about like Christmas time, it's kind of got that.
And so you do that, not on the rocks, no ice, just straight.
Neat.
Okay.
Straight
Just
up.
neat.
Yeah, straight up.
Okay. A man among men.
Oh, that is so good. That is so good. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out tonight. Let me kick this thing off, and we'll.
What's up, chat? Good to see you again.
Yeah,
Man, I feel like home. It just feels great. I love this.
Yeah, most everybody's out here tonight because you came back.
I love it.
So they're like, yeah, Wieger's back.
Good to see
Wieger's
everyone. Good to
back.
see
Yeah, it's
everyone.
good to have you. Okay, let me do this thing. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 554, recorded on December 1st, 2022. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in a blustery, although Mike Wieger's back. Mike, tomorrow, 57 or something like that tomorrow
This
afternoon.
is Nebraska. I told someone, like, wait till tomorrow. It'll be 25 yesterday and 60 tomorrow. And legit, that's about what we got.
Looking, I've got a whole screen dedicated to my radar. That's it's a Windows app that it's got great visualizations on it. And tomorrow afternoon, 58. Tomorrow night, 14.
So, welcome to Nebraska, folks. Welcome to Nebraska.
I'm gonna try those. That's in Fahrenheit for our international friends. And then it doesn't really recover for a while. It'll come back into the 30s. But so tomorrow, I've got a London broil that I've sliced up for beef jerky. It's marinating in the fridge right now. Tomorrow at 1 or 2 o'clock, we'll throw it on because I think I have a short window to get that smoked and make jerky out of it. Then we'll trying to invite one of my buddies over for a happy hour, if you know what I mean, a happy hour time.
A little candlestick. Yep.
Yeah. But anyways, Mike Wieger's back. Mike, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back. We were talking pre-show. This just feels like home. I've missed you guys. Yeah. And it's just family stuff. So I've loved it. Over the past few months, it's been Thursday night baseball was what started it. It was baseball every Thursday night and practices and games and then hockey for myself. And so Jim, I was super pumped. Jim messaged me. He's like, "Hey, December, what do you got going?" I said, "Actually, I have an open night on the 1st with no hockey, no kids stuff, no work stuff." So excited to be back, Jim. It's good to be back.
You threw me into a hole. I have really struggled since you left. I've had some good moments and I've had some others. I've been like, I don't know. What am I doing here? Why am I trying to do this? You were such an easy fallback. We would, if I had no one scheduled, we could always just get on and talk. I mean, even tonight, we don't have much of a plan. We're going to fill the time that we have because we like talking to each other. I mean, the pre-show, if you didn't join us for the pre-show, we probably could have done the pre-show conversation for another hour, right?
Yeah.
So it has been, but I think I've got it figured out again, or at least nailed down that I don't know what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to keep doing it. It's going to be,
I love it.
It's going to be fun.
You must have talked to the people at work though, because today, it's been the same thing at work. Is today they had a guy back out on some video they were going to record and they just texted me like, "Hey, can you come down to the studio?" I'm like, "Why?" We need to talk about something. Talk about what? We'll tell you when you get down here. They're just vamp for 15 minutes on buy-sell agreements for advisors.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good, right? Let's do that. So I've been trying to get my fill. Nothing has filled the void though, Jim, of doing podcasting. I talk to a lot of friends and they always ask about, Thursdays and you still podcasting. I'm like, oh guys, I miss it. No, I'm not doing it as much. And it's funny, when we were about to get on the show, I said, I got to find this microphone. I'd actually put it away. But one of the reasons I had put it away is because Hannah and I had actually started talking about maybe doing our podcast again. Hey, not live, we can record whenever. So I had pulled them out to put into a kit. I'm like, we can do it in the truck on the way down to the farm. So I had built this Go kit. We haven't done it yet because you know me, I'm just ADD. It sounds like a great idea for 1 week, and the next week we're like, yeah, that's stupid. We don't have time. What are we thinking? Why are we trying to make this work? But got the microphone back out and it'll be good. I'm excited to talk. And you have a lot of stuff you've been working on. So it's going to be fun tonight because it's not going to be, me talking about the tech side. I'm excited to hear what you've been doing on your side in the past few months. This last time we talked, you've been making some strides.
All the PC parts are in. I started putting it together on Tuesday, did a little live stream.
So besides the live stream, have you been talking about this on the show a lot? Okay.
Been
so the crew knows generally what you've been doing.
But little bits at a time. Just hey, I'm thinking about this or I'm thinking about that. Tonight, maybe we'll spend some time. Got a parts
consolidating list. It. I want to know exactly what the purpose, what you built, what you chose, why you chose it.
Yeah. I got PC parts picker up and we'll talk a little bit about. I had it up, maybe I closed it. We'll get it back going again and maybe talk a little bit about what and why. It's getting defined, as far as what I want to do, and so we'll talk about that here in just a second.
Yeah.
Before we do that, big thanks, Phil Collison. If you recognize the name, it's because my son. He joined me last week instead of Sammy. Sammy was supposed to come on. She wasn't feeling well. Sammy is committed to the week between Christmas and New Year. So that Thursday between Christmas and New Year 2022. I don't know the exact date, but look it up. It's in there somewhere. She's going to come on the show, update us on all the things that are going on. And she's kind of figuring out what she wants to do. Of course, she's back in school and we've got a plan and she's doing some things. So she'll be back as well. Phil joined me last week. If you haven't listened to it, probably more whiskey chat than anything in it. That's kind of his life right now. But we did spend some time talking about tech. And by the way, you may get a chance to hear my son, Tim. They all call him Timmy, but Tim, I call him Tim. That's his real name. He may come on as we get into this VR space because he's doing a lot of VR stuff. And so that as we think about the PC coming up. So big thanks to Phil for joining me last week and for coming on. A big thank to our Patreon subscribers. If you're one of those who gives value back through Patreon, you could do that as well. theaverageguy.tv/Patreon if you want to do it. We've dropped a few, so there's some room if you want to jump on, if you're feeling generous. So I got a $5 plan, super easy. One plan, jump in. That kind of helps us do what we do here, keeps the boat afloat. And some people just like to give. So if you want one of those that want to do it, theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. Mike, let's catch up with you just a smidge. You alluded to some of this in the when you were jumping in here. But have you had what have you been working on tech wise? What's kind of been keeping you busy? Listen, your kids are taking most of your time, and I get that. It's going to be that way for the next couple of years. There's going to become a moment though. I'm going to start saying this to you now. Like you've gone over the hump of like, okay, the kids are keeping me busy. I can't do anything else. And I told you that for a long time, right?
Yeah, you did.
Now I'm going to start telling you, listen, there's going to be a point in time when the kids are doing their own thing and you're going to be like, I need something.
I need my own thing. Yeah.
It's coming faster than you think. So don't give up on that thought as well. That day is coming back and it's probably coming back a lot faster than you think. But give us a little update, what you've been working on or what kind of things.
Yeah. And for this crew and what everyone's interested in, I think everyone would be curious to know for me, I have been in a maintenance, stability, and upkeep mode, which I think is important for a lot of us to go through these stages, right? A lot of us spend a lot of times. And when I was on this show, I was logged into my Unraid dashboard every single day and I'm adding things. I'm always tweaking and making sure things are good. You get into a mode, and especially, if you run, maybe you run a Plex server that other people outside your home rely on. I don't know. It's just an example, right? Weird. Or maybe you run a Nextcloud instance where other people rely on you for file hosting. You will get into a mode where, just like me, kids start to take over, life starts to take over. And I all of a sudden I am lucky to log in to my home server once a week if I'm lucky. Right. And so for me, it was getting into a mode where all of a sudden I need to make sure alerts are working on failing drives. I need to make sure alerts are working on Docker containers that haven't been upgraded in a while. For me, you guys know I love Blue Iris and the monitoring and the cameras. Are my cameras actually working as good as they used to? Since we have last talked, I had a camera that died. It was my oldest camera. It was due. Replacing those sort of things. So you get into a mode where you start needing to make sure that the system you have set up is alerting you properly when you're no longer monitoring these things on a daily basis. Yeah. And so one thing I learned, through Unraid, I'm still nerding out on Unraid, guys. Like for me, this platform has been one of the best home server platforms for me, and mainly because of the alerts. So what I have done is I have essentially created my own, and I've done this since the beginning, right? So, since about 2 years ago, I have a Discord, my own Discord server, essentially. I have one channel that only I'm a member of, and my Unraid, I try and focus as many of my alerts to Discord as possible because Discord alerts me on my phone. It's the way Jim knows he can get a hold of me because it's the one thing, like even Facebook Messenger, those alerts are most of the time muted on my phone. So I have to check Facebook if I want a messenger alert, but Discord gets through. And so, I had a drive that was failing. And, I look back, turns out that drive has been in my system for 8 years. So an 8-year-old drive finally started failing. And with Unraid, again, got the alert through Discord that, hey, you have something that's failing smart. It's the reallocated sector. It's like, okay, about time I look into it. And I'm always the type, I buy one extra drive and I keep it on the shelf for those types of things. I don't have the space I wish I did in my server. I am fully maxed out on SATA ports. I wish I could keep a hot spare in the server. I can't, but I have it on the desk, and I know that I don't spend beyond a week. I'm usually not more than a week away from home. So even if things went down, if the drive crashed, I'm a week away from being back. But I went in and replaced that hard drive in Unraid, and I'm just constantly reminded how good Unraid is for the home geek, for the home guy who's not spending all the time on it, not a sysadmin. And for me, getting in, all it took was powering that down for all of 2 minutes, putting in the new drive, plugging it back up. And again, my server is now full of 4 and 2 terabyte drives, probably too many. I could definitely, now the 12, 16 terabytes are the norm, I could definitely consolidate from the 9 data drives I have now, probably to 4 or 3. I just haven't, right? Because 4 terabyte drives are cheap. But getting in there, replacing it, it rebuilds off the parity, and it's just so freaking simple. And especially for the stage of life I'm in right now, this was a Saturday morning, right? Like the boys are awake, we're all having fun. I'm like, give me literally 10 minutes. I've got to go power down the server, put the new one in, and just start the process. And it rebuilds over the course of the day. Over the course of the day, even if I'm trying to access a Plex file that was on there, it emulates that drive during the day while it's rebuilding. By that night, I get the alert that everything's all good and it's back up to normal. So for me, I've gotten into this mode of how good is my maintenance and how good are my alerts for when I'm not fully on. So Jim, for me, that's been where I've been at lately. And I think for Blue Iris, I wish had a few more alerts for, hey, this camera keeps dropping every once in a while, because that camera, the reason I noticed was because we had, my dog was out back actually, and it's my back camera. I was actually checking when we were out of town to see, hey, is the dog getting back inside? Because we can leave our dog for 1 to 3 days. He has a dog door and a big bowl, and he's good. And the video kept freezing. I was like, that's kind of weird. And I went back and looked, and turns out it had been freezing a lot. It had been dropping, the power had been going bad, and the camera had, just like I said, it had been a old Cox home security camera that I had repurposed, and it had gone bad and needed to be replaced. So I didn't figure out the alerts well in Blue Iris, but enough that replacing that took all of 10 minutes once I ordered the new camera off of Amazon. So that has been kind of the mode I have been in, which is kind of a fun mode to get into. It's almost like going through a crash. I know a lot of us talk about, do you have good backups, right? Do you have local? Do you have remote? What's your backup strategy? That's essentially what I've been going through, is almost testing that. And thank goodness I have not had a server crash on me or no drive completely die. But again, that's the pros of having good software now, that it can detect a drive that is starting to go bad. Hey, this drive has been reallocating sectors a lot, right? Like, it's gonna die, and you can be a little bit more proactive. And it's been a good little test for me to go through. And I found out that my system is pretty stable, and I found out my stress was really low, knowing I have offsite backup. So if that drive would have completely died, I know that my photos and my main share on my Unraid, which is all of my personal stuff, I don't care if I lost my entire media library, I can bring that stuff back. That's not what I'm worried about. But the photos and those sort of items, I know that I was like, hell, wow, my stress is really low. I would have thought my stress would have been higher, but I just know that I could always recover that from Backblaze if I needed to, because that's where I've been backing up from. It's been an interesting time. It's been a very interesting time.
Yeah, well, as you're explaining that, so I took, in the time since you've left, I've taken my Unraid box down.
Okay.
It was on a Core i3 box. I was having some problems. It was reading some drives, and I just was like, I don't need it right now. I just don't. I've got a pretty good box.
Yeah.
The Moro data box has worked flawless. It's solid state. It just does its thing. It's backing up well. It's going to Backblaze, B2 instance, and everything is working. Eventually that's going to die, right? It's going to die. And that's definitely, I think part of the new build is I will virtualize a Unraid box, or I may even go with some dedicated separate equipment to get that done. Just kind of depends on where I'm at.
Yeah. Or a dedicated Unraid box, and your gaming rig is virtualized. I know a lot of guys who their main OS is Unraid, and they run a VM for their gaming rig, because you can easily pass through that GPU, as much CPU cores as you want. For me, my Blue Iris box, you guys got to remember, is virtualized. So I virtualize my entire Blue Iris Windows box on Unraid. So Unraid's my core OS. I'm running a full Windows VM just for Blue Iris, and it works fantastic. In the load, like, I have been shocked how well virtualization has gotten at utilizing resources. Like before, your VMs had a lot of overhead. Nowadays, I mean, they're not as good as a Docker container, but they're getting really darn close to a Docker container. Like that Windows instance for me, for Blue Iris, doesn't use that much CPU. I am still, on average, my entire Unraid server is utilizing about 20% of a Ryzen 5 5600, right? Like 20 to 20% on average. And that is including the VM, including all the Docker containers. I mean, I have a lot running on this Unraid server, and that virtualization technology has gotten pretty darn good.
It has. It has. And why I need to get Jonathan. That's a good reminder. I need to get Jonathan Panozzo from Unraid back on to talk a little bit about it. So it's sitting for me from an idea standpoint. It's sitting in the background. It'll probably come back at some point when I need it. I don't need it today. That was one of those things where I had so many things going on that I couldn't spend the time checking them. And then, like you said, I mean, sometimes they don't need to be checked that often. And it's hard because, like, then you forget some things. You're like, okay, what was I doing there? And how is that working? And there is some complexity. It's not completely simple. I mean, there is some complexity to the solutions. You got to kind of figure, even when you have a drive go out, you kind of like, okay, did I label those drives so I know which one is which when it went bad?
That was the most
right?
difficult part, right? Was opening
Yeah.
that thing up, and
Yeah.
I had taken a screenshot of the serial number, and then I'm digging through all the drives because the chassis I have does not make that easy. You have to unscrew and unplug every drive to check the serial number.
Yeah.
So I got lucky. It was in the first 4 bay or 5 bay. My chassis has 3 5 bays, and it was in the first one I grabbed each time. So I actually got lucky. But yeah, that's the most difficult part.
It is. If you're gonna do a lot of stuff with those drives, it's probably a good idea to label them as you're putting them in. So put them in, spend some extra time with the chassis open, get a piece of tape or something along those lines, one of those labelers, go in, get them labeled, just in case one goes bad. You don't have to test them all, to kind of make it work. So I think with the new build, Mike, I will do some virtualizations of some of those. I've got 2 Core i3 boxes, and then I have a really old Core i7 box that I'll probably keep around for a while because it's still really good. It still does its job, but I will probably try to consolidate and get rid of the Core i3 boxes, get those virtualized on this new rig I bought, or I'm buying at this point. And you'll see why here in just a second as we talk about it. But yeah, that's
You'll
kind of
be
the plan.
amazed by that. Like that's the one thing I mean, we talked about this even before I left the show. I was trying to consolidate. So I was consolidating a lot of boxes onto one. It's just amazing if you get a modern call it a gaming ring, whatever you want to call it, modern computer with modern CPU, modern GPU, the amount of things you can run on that one machine is phenomenal. And Bob asked in chat, he asked, what kind of resources do you have for the Blue Iris VM, any GPU for AI stuff? And so for me, like I said, so that Blue Iris box is running as a VM on my Unraid. My Unraid is a Ryzen 5 5600. And what I have running is essentially, so think of that as 12 virtual cores, right, with hyperthreading, 6 actual cores. So I gave it 4 cores, 8 threads essentially on. So that's what it has dedicated from the CPU side on mine. And with the AI detection, so we all know that now Blue Iris has really deep stack integration. So deep stack is super easy to integrate. And what they actually recommend is that you install that alongside on Windows with the Blue Iris. But for me, I use my GPU. So I have a 1060 in that Unraid box that's being used for a lot of things. Number one, it's mainly used for Plex, and these are all through Dockers, right? So Plex has access to the 1060 for transcoding. TDAR is that Docker container that instantly it looks at a file that came in and it converts it to a new format. So what it's doing for me is it's taking all my H.264 content, converting it to 265 to save space. That's using the GPU. So that's a Docker container. So I don't pass through my GPU to my Blue Iris box because I need it for all my Dockers. So what I actually did was I Dockerized DeepStack. So I did DeepStack, which is the AI processing. Is that a human? Is that a car? I put that in a container on Unraid, gave it access to the GPU, and then I just point the VM in Blue Iris. You can tell it the IP address of where DeepStack is. I give it the internal IP address from Unraid, and so DeepStack isn't running in the VM, it's running as a Docker on the same hardware, right, just in a Docker. And that frees up a lot of resources. So for me, the goal was having my 1060 being able to use for everything. And so by not passing it through to the VM, by having it being used on the Docker container side, it saved a lot. And I think that's mainly why. So all of my cameras in Blue Iris do straight to disk recording. So there's not a lot of CPU usage. And I think that's why overall the CPU usage on that VM is so low, because the AI and all the kind of the heavy lifting is done through the DeepStack Docker, which has access to my 1060, which works pretty well. So for you, Jim, though, okay, so and I got to be honest, I've been so few and far between on even podcasts. I haven't listened to many podcasts in between. So I saw you posting on Discord, and you doing a lot of invites to the build of your new PC, and I got really excited. I'm like, okay, so Jim's building new hardware. So you've got to give me the background. Is this a server build? It sounds like no from the beginning of this show. It sounds like this is more geared towards VR gaming, maybe a hybrid in the future. But what was the initial use case for you building a new machine? And then what'd you end up buying? OS? What are you thinking about?
Yeah. Before I dive into that, Bob, let me just wrap these comments so we don't miss them. Bob says, when you're thinking about hard drives, right? Also, like, label the hard drives with where and when you bought them for warranty purposes.
Point.
Isn't that a great? Get it somewhere, right? Print
I'm
a
so
label.
lucky I do everything through Amazon. So
yeah,
I can always go through my Amazon history and find where I bought it. And I've actually utilized that a lot, especially on Seagate drives. I mean, I'm not biased towards WD or Seagate. I will say my Seagate drives have failed 3 times. I have had 0 fails on Western Digital, just my experience. But Seagate, in their wisdom, has made the RMD process so easy that each one of those drives they have replaced, just no questions asked. Send us the receipt, send us the drive, we ship you a new drive. So I've gotten 3 new drives for relatively no effort on their part.
Yeah, it's kind of nice when it works that way, right?
Yeah.
If you're purchasing from I've done a lot of Amazon purchases, but actually on this build, I had some PayPal credit, so I wanted to use some of that. So, or not PayPal credit. So I wanted to go to eBay to get some of that done. We'll talk about that. But most of it's been, that's not totally true. Like, I bought directly from Western Digital. They were running a pretty good deal, so I bought on those. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the why. I've been alluding to this in various shows, but I don't think I've put this together all on one show. By the way, last night we put the build together. I'll leave a link to that 2-hour build video. It's not terribly exciting. I don't know why you'd want to watch it, but it's kind of fun. If you want to go out there, I'll put a link in the show notes out at theaverageguy.tv/HGG554 on this one when we have that done. If you want to go out and take a look. I'll also leave a link to the build list on PCPartsPicker.com that has everything I bought to date. Now, certainly, Mike, as I've been putting this together, I've gotten lots of advice. Some I followed, some I haven't. I think Bob and Ryan, I'm going to be on Bob and Ryan's show, by the way, next Wednesday, I think at the 7th. We're going to talk a little bit about gadgets for Christmas, but I think Bob really wanted me to buy this really RGB bougie case.
Yeah.
And I bought a really boring one, like super boring.
I'm right there with you. I'm a boring case guy. Yeah.
So the use case is to replace, I've got 3 of these PCs that are getting a little long in the tooth. I wanted to be able to replace those, plus get a modern PC that could run both some of the games I mentioned in pre-show. I think Flight Simulator. I want to kind of get that's getting really cool, and so I think there's some of those kinds of games I want to start working with. I don't have a PC. The M1 could probably do it, but I use it for podcasting. It's kind of my work PC, just to be honest, my work computer. So the other idea in here is my son Tim has really gotten big in the VR space. He's hosting parties, he's DJing out there, he's doing all this VR stuff. And I kind of want to see what it's about. We've been talking about for VR for 20 years. Dave Hamilton from Mackie Gab was on a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And, he said this, he was like, look, we've been talking about VR for a while and it's still not quite there yet, which is good because I want to be there when it does hit. Like, this is, if there's ever a time to start thinking about it, the equipment's getting better. We're actually getting some things that are working. Like, so what would a podcast look like inside of VR? That's
Yeah.
kind of the right. That's kind of the thought on this thing is like, okay, how would I do that? So the kind of dual purpose. One, replace some of the PCs that I have here that are getting a little old. I know, I mean, I got some Core i3s that are 10 or 11 years old. They're like 540s. Like this was like first gen, maybe second gen. I can't remember. Core i3s. So they're a little old. And I know at some point they're going to give way. Two, build something that's worthy of VR. And then maybe three, be able to game on it. Right now, I have an Xbox, and actually, I could get an Xbox Series S. They're $250 right now. They're available, or you could get a Series X. They're $500.
But for
So
VR, those are not that great. Yeah.
they're not options. Yeah, they're
Right.
not really
Not options.
they're
Yeah.
not really options today. So that's kind of what is I think about what the why of what I'm doing. And I'll bring up on screen here. So if you're catching audio only,
Oh,
sorry
I
about
love
that.
it.
You might want to head over to the YouTube. So
First of all,
this
great
is
CPU choice.
yeah, you've got one of these, right?
Yeah,
Or
that's what I was running in my gaming rig, and then I moved it over to my Unraid server. That 5600 and is a fantastic processor. You'll love it.
yeah. So all the both Bob and Ryan. You know what's been interesting? So I've been listening to thinkcomputers.org a lot more. I've been showing up for their live show and listening to those guys. They're so funny because I've tried to overbuy. Like, do I need a Ryzen 9 or do I need
No.
a Ryzen
Yeah,
7?
exactly.
And they were like, no.
Yeah.
it's
And I
been
think for you, the main important piece is for people who are going to put a GPU in their rig, like a dedicated GPU, Ryzen is such a better bang for your buck in terms of CPU. I will say, if you are planning on running a server on this and you are not going to put a GPU, go Intel just for the iGPU, like for quick sync and like
oh
Plex
yeah.
transcoding and everything.
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
planning on it, but Jim, I love this because I know you. I know you're putting a GPU in this rig. I know when
I
you
am.
scroll down, it's going to be there, right? So for you, Ryzen makes so much sense. I always like to put that caveat because I think if I were to go back and redo, I reused the 5600 because I had it. And I have the 1060 in there because I had it. If I hadn't had the 1060 and I was doing my main media server, I have 30 terabytes of media in that thing. I probably would have gone Intel. But for you and for a gaming rig, because you're going to put a GPU, you get so much more bang for your buck on the Ryzen side right now. Still, like that 5600 is the gaming CPU. And to your point, especially for not overspending, you don't need to spend a lot to get super high performance on the Ryzen side if you're putting in a dedicated GPU.
By the way, right now, so this is 1st of December, is not a great time to be buying. So all the prices spiked right after Black Friday. Like it was crazy. I'll talk about when we get to the GPU, I'll tell you a little story about how that bit me just yesterday on this. And so you can see here on the price, PC Parts Picker tries to get you kind of the best price. And it's showing, 194 wherever. In this view, I don't see where it's at. And there's another view where you can. And that's a little expensive. I think I got it for 160. So like it's PC parts have rebounded a little bit right now as we're speaking. I don't know if you're hearing my voice right now and it's still December, make sure you're checking prices. There's been a little bit of a rebound on this, especially in the areas of GPU. So if you're thinking about buying, be smart about it as we go forward. Motherboard, I went with the Asus TUF Gaming X577 or
X570
Pro. Yeah, with the Wi-Fi 6. Great motherboard right now going for about 150. I got it for 112, 115. I'm sorry, 250. I got it for 212. So I got a pretty good deal on it. Good board, solid build. It's nice to put together. Cut my finger the second I pulled it out of the bag.
Well, I loved you when X570 as compared to B540. So, like on the Ryzen side, right, that X570, when you're talking about PCI Gen 4, you're talking about how those lanes interact with the CPU, how that's going to interact through SATA ports. I've settled on, there are a few pros and cons. I think X570 is the way to go. So I think that's a great choice on the Ryzen side. I think you'll really appreciate the future proofing you did, especially on the PCI Gen 4 by going X570. Love it. Yeah.
You're gonna see a pattern in what I'm buying, and it's not RGB, by the way. I have gone completely away. There isn't a part that has a light on it that can do RGB
Jim,
on
that
the
makes me
setup
so
that I have.
happy. I think like because I am the same way. I think my motherboard does have one light on it, and so does my cooler because I got an AIO that has a light on it. Besides those two pieces, love that you didn't go RGB. Nothing wrong with
Jace,
RGB. We'll say that, but I
no,
think
no, no.
you can save a lot of money by
Yeah,
not going RGB. Like
yeah,
there's literally a price surge on RGB. I think if you're willing to
yeah.
go, and for us, Jim, this is sitting in a box like under our desk, behind your desk, where you're never seeing it anyway.
Nobody
Right?
ever sees it.
No one
No,
ever
it's
sees it.
hidden.
So exactly,
Nobody
I
sees
love it.
it. It doesn't look good. So, anyways, but again, if you're doing RGB, that's awesome for you. Jay says, I want to have a VR podcast. I think, as we just coming back to that, Bob says the VR DJ stuff is huge, and it is, right? It is huge. Fortnite, big artists perform on platforms like that now, and that's true. Tony says, I just bought my daughter a PC and went with the Ryzen 5 5600 with the RTX 3060. Her needs are few. And Tony, you've probably future proofed that a little bit.
I think so too.
That's a system. That's a 5-year system, probably.
If her
right?
needs
Don't
are
you think,
few,
Mike?
she got an upgrade because I mean, you're saying my needs are few then at that point because I mean that's I
Yeah.
mean I game I do a lot of Call of Duty Warzone right now especially and I have a 3060 I have the TI version, but that system Tony will get her through for years to come. That's essentially what I have. I upgraded the Ryzen 9 on my machine just because I was doing a little video editing and processing time. Besides that machine will be fantastic. And Bob points on a good point. That motherboard you have has 2.5 gigabit. So you have it now. If you wanted to upgrade your system, which Jim, we all know how these systems start out. They start out as your gaming rig and they get moved to a server in the future, right? Yep. And you're going to love being like, oh man, 7 years down the road when that becomes your server and you've upgraded to 2.5, that box has that without you having to add an Intel PCI NIC or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, it's true because my Core i7 4770, 4740, 4770, one of those 47 series, that's going to be the new server, right? Today, that's my PC, that's my Windows production box. So when I need to do Windows things, when I need to do editing, the stuff I do for the podcast, when I need to be on Windows, that's the box that will get completely dedicated to. It'll kind of become the storage server here. And so I was figuring out how to kind of build that up and how do I pack it in? How do I reconfigure some things and move some cards around? It doesn't have a GPU. I sold my 1060s back when GPUs were going through the roof and gave some guys here in the community some pretty good deals, I thought, on it for those. And so it doesn't have a GPU in it. And I think I've got it maxed out at 32 gig of RAM. So it's not going to get me that far. It's certainly not going to game. I tried to put Flight Simulator on it and it was like, yeah, no.
Not with that CPU.
No. You're not going to do this. But it would make a great Unraid box just to be
that'd be a fantastic
100% honest with you, right? It's a 10-year chip, but Core i7 47 series and 32 gig of RAM, like that would do some things for me on Unraid.
For sure.
So yeah. Memory wise, Mike, I did, and yes, you're seeing this right. I bought 128 gig of RAM.
Wow.
Yeah, I did. I just said for 100 and these were selling for they say 271 here. That's not what I paid for them. So I think I got them for 175 for per 64 gig. So 3 whatever. Do the math on that kind of thing. 350. 350 for I was like, on two of my last two computers, I've hunted down memory to max them out at some point in time. And I was like, you know what? My history, my track record is I keep these things forever. I might as well just max it out now, right?
Yeah.
I have it. So Mushkin Redline 64 gig. Those are 2x32 gig. They're DDR4 3600 CL18 memory. Pretty good for what I'm going to be doing here. I think.
And just make sure when you install those and enable the XMP profile because you'll get the full 3600 speed on those. That's in the BIOS. But again, Jim, this goes back to like when that thing becomes a server, you're exactly right. Like my gaming rig, I only need 32 gig. Every time I upgrade to a server, when like my server needs 64 to 128, like every time, because you're running VMs, you're running Docker containers, everything that needs a lot of just dedicated memory. I love it. I love that you're just doing it on the front end because it's going to save you in the future from having to go pay inflated prices on old DD4 memory at that time. Right. So it's
no, I think so. And
smart.
Yesterday, and back, I mean, November was the best time to buy. I wouldn't say that today because things like you're seeing these memory prices 271. I paid 175.
Yeah.
The chip is now 200. I paid 165 for it. The board, I paid 212 for. It's now 265. For whatever reason, there's been a little bit of a spike here in December. So if you're just be cautious if you're going out there to get that done. It's the prices have kind of rebounded a little bit, but man, November was great. I came in at just the right time. Couple comments coming in. Mark says his home service offers now 2.5 gig port in the modem, which is pretty
It's
awesome. I always
fantastic.
think about
Okay,
that.
so Mark,
Yeah.
let us know. Do they actually offer anything above gigabit service, or are they just future proofing the modems? I'm assuming they're future proofing the modems, but Tony
I'm
later
hearing 2
on,
gig.
a few down, says they're actually offering higher than gig.
Yeah, I'm seeing 2 gig being offered in a lot of
Okay.
places now, right?
Oh man, he answered. We can get 3
Yeah.
gig. He said that's fantastic.
No,
Man, I'm jealous.
right on. Bob says the i7 4770. Thanks for getting that. It's one of those things I've said it 1,000 times, but as soon as I said it, I was like, was it a 4770, 4740? Anyways, the 4770, one of the best CPUs in years. And it is
Your board's going to go out before the CPU does. Your board is
Yeah.
going to go out before the CPU sees its end of life. Because I was running that CPU on my machine and my Unreal for a long time. Loved it. Board
Yeah.
failed. That's all that happened, right? I could have
Right.
kept running that CPU.
Yeah. No, right on. It's been a good God, it has been a really good chip.
Yeah.
And like I said, I maxed out that board now. So I think I have 32 gig is all it supported back then. And again, now that I'm thinking about it, I think that's my new Unraid box.
Yeah,
All right.
I'd love it.
So Mushkin, memory. I've had Mushkin drives before. I really liked them. No RGB on these. They offered them, but I kind of went with the cheapest I could get at 3,600. That was kind of the goal on this. The price between 32 and 36 is not a lot right now, and so I thought let's just get 3,600. Kind of locked that in. Went with on Christian's recommendation. So I had Christian on the show, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago, and he recommended the WD Black SN850 1 or 2 terabyte drive.
Yep.
Right now, that's showing as 164. I got it for 124 during Black Friday. It got as cheap as 110. It's back to, I think now, if you go back to the site, we're back at the 170s or the 165 though. But Mike, that's the 7,200 version of it with the heat sink on it. That thing freaking is gonna fly. Like
They fly. It's unreal.
It may be the thing to be honest, it may be the thing I'm most excited about is getting some stuff loaded on that hard drive and just watching it just rip. Right?
Yeah. I mean, you'll notice. Do you remember the days of going from spinning rust to SSDs?
Yeah.
And then now you go from SSDs to NVMe. And really, honestly, from a single copying standpoint, you might not notice it. What you'll notice is when you're running a lot of different tasks at once and they're all not bottlenecking. You're like, this should bottleneck this hard drive. So much so, like my Unraid now, a lot of the cache drive is run on NVMe because like it's just it can handle a million tasks coming in. Whereas the SSD is great and the speeds are good, but when you have a ton of stuff hitting it from all different places, you're still going to bottleneck it. Not with an NVMe. Like you're hard pressed to bottleneck an NVMe drive.
I have that board just has a Gen 4 NVMe and a Gen 3 NVMe. So some of those boards have
that's the way mine as well.
4 Gen 4s, I think, something like that.
Oh,
and
really?
the higher end ones, something like that, 3, 4, something like that. I'm not going to build that way. And so it does have a Gen 3. I will probably start looking for a really cheap, like 2 or 4 terabyte NVMe. I know those are like today, that's not smart, but in the future here, I will probably look for a cheaper one to throw in there where it's just storage, right?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily need the speed on it, but it's like, remember when we used to put SSDs in and then the games would be on the spinners or whatever, right?
Yep.
Or the data would be on the spinners. That's where we're at today. Gen 4 is the OS. Gen 3 is the data storage. I mean,
and right now it won't be a big thing for you, but keep in mind in the future, if that becomes a server for you, a lot of times if you do populate the second NVMe slot, it will deactivate 2 of your SATA ports.
Okay.
So I
good
will
to
know
know.
it's like for me, right? I'm using a gaming board in my thing. I don't populate the second NVMe because it would deactivate 2 of my SATA ports.
Good to
But
know.
at the same
Yeah.
time, most people aren't using all of their 6 or 8 SATA ports that come on the board. So you'll probably never run into it. But it is something, especially for those of you in chat, if you're trying to use a gaming board in your server, if you're having issues with that, try pulling out your second NVMe and you'll probably be okay.
Yeah, that's good to be in the documentation as well. If you go, if you go out there, one of the super cool things is I was doing this build on Tuesday. Is Ryan was Kirshner from thinkcomputers.org. He had the manual up, and he was like walking me through. I was like, "Hey, what?" No, he's like, "Hey, the manual says this. Go do that. It's this." Super helpful because like here I am. I got parts all over the place. I'm trying to read
You
the
don't have
book.
time to have that up. Yeah.
He's got the manual open. It was super helpful. And so he gave me some tips. What was that? He walked me through some of the setup. I put the power supply in the next day. So he gave me some tips on, hey, when you go to put the power supply in, do this, do that, and some other tips as well. So pretty cool. Okay. Case. I went super boring. I went super old school. I went with the Cooler Master HAFXB Evo, which is that big square black LAN case. That's what they called it. It was like a LAN gaming case back in the day. The sides come off, the top comes off, the power supply frame comes off, everything comes out. It's got 2 fans up front that you can replace with a cooler. In fact, Ryan from thinkcomputers.org has sent me a water cooler to or liquid cooler, I should say.
Dude, that guy is the bomb. He sent me mine too. I love that. That's great. He is the water cooler like drug dealer of our community. It's fantastic.
He's awesome.
He's great.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
So I have one coming. It will go in the front. It'll go in the front part of this.
I was just going to ask how that. Okay, so you're going to do water cooling, and it's going to
240,
go
right?
Front.
I think it's a 240 radiator.
Yeah, it's like a rad, so you'll put right up front. That's great.
Yeah. So, and I just love. I know that case. It's got enough. I can put 3 drives. I can take a 2 bay and turn it into a 3 drive. I can take it. Then it's got 2 other trayless. That's not toolless trays that you can put drives in. So there's 5. There's a place for 2 more on the side. So that's 7. So I could get with just what's there, I could get 7 in there. I could do some fancy things to get a few more. So 7's plenty, by the way.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
7 drives is plenty.
And you can double up some of those with sleds to get NVMe. Like you could do 2 SSDs, like SATA SSDs. You could like double up. Yeah, for sure. That's great.
Yeah, for sure. I could do some IC dock things and get, if I wanted to stack it out. I probably won't be doing that on this case. I'll probably be doing that on the old case because the 4770, the Core i7 4770 is in the same box. So not only, exact same. It's kind of one of the reasons why I bought it is so I can share parts. Right?
Yeah.
So it was just one of those kinds of things. It's like, well, hey, if I'm doing this, by the way, I've got one of those. You've been down here. I've got one of those. I bought, Walmart or whatever, one of those shelving units that's got the plywood and then the metal. 2 of those fits perfectly across the top of one of those units. Right. I was like, oh, this couldn't have been any better. So
because I was wondering if you were going to go rack mounted for everything now. So no, you're sticking with the kind of more traditional case style.
You know what? I thought about it. I really did think about the rack mount. And then it was just when it came down to it, it was just convenient. That case.
And those rack mount cases are beyond expensive for their functionality.
Oh, it's so
they're stupid.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous.
They're like literally $300 just to be able to rack mount it. Now, in some cases it's worth it. Some cases it's not. Yeah.
The that case what had been 160 when I started looking at it during Black Friday. It did come down to 122. And then I today it's showing 123.99, which is about the price. That's the only part that I bought that hasn't gone up since Monday.
Is the case.
Everything else has kind of jumped up.
So what GPU? That was one thing that it wasn't shown there. What GPU are you going with?
Let's hold on. We'll come to that in a second. Let's do the PSU really quick. So I'm super proud of this one. I bought this EVGA Supernova 750G Plus about 3 years ago, and it's been sitting on my shelf as a backup. And of course, as soon as you have a backup, nothing fails. Now, I've put that power supply in another. Now that I've put it in, I'm gonna have a failure this weekend for
Yep.
sure.
So it
Right.
works.
But that right now retail, I think I got that for on say the reason I bought it was like $65 from EVGA at the time. Right now, that's retailing for about $190.
Wow.
Yeah, fully modular. I mean, it's gold certified, really good power supply. Now, 750, which is borderline like I'm, at the 30, 60, 30, 70. Like I'm getting close a little bit on
Oh,
those.
you'll be solid.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You'll
yeah.
be solid.
But it's still one of those things where there's been a lot of talk of the 40 series, right? 4080, 4090.
Yeah.
And so, that definitely does not set me up, but I'm not headed that direction. I am
Right.
not,
Right.
not
Yeah,
headed
because
there.
I run. I should probably look. Oh, maybe it's an 800. I run a Seasonic. I think I have a 750 as well, and that's with a Ryzen 9 and with a 3060 Ti, and I have not even close. Like I look at my power meter, and I think I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm running 240 right now, and
Right.
even when I'm gaming, it's like 400 of the 800 total. So I think you'll be completely fine.
Not a lot of hard drives in there. It's got one NVMe. It's
which
like
they're
not a
no
lot of
power.
fans. I'm gonna have that cooler in there, but that's not pulling a lot of power necessarily. So
Yeah,
750, both Ryan and Bob were like, that should be fine with
more
for,
than
for
enough.
what you're doing. Yeah,
Yeah,
for what you're doing. there.
and for future proofing, I honestly think you could put a 4080 in there and you'd be fine too.
Yeah, I think so.
Especially with
yeah.
the 5600.
So let's get that. Let's talk a little bit about that. So this is the one I went with today. So an NVIDIA GeForce
Nice.
RTX 3060 Ti, 8 gig GDDR6. We had a lot of discussion about necessarily waiting. The 3060s are going to get the GDDR6X, which is the newer chipset on these. And so last night on the show on Think Computers, I asked the guys, should I wait? And Ryan was, again, super reasonable, was like, nah, so you'll be fine. You'll be fine for what you're doing. The next jump for you will be the next important jump, right? So whatever comes out post this 4000 series, that's the one that's going to be the next jump. Today, when we think about the use case I'm going to use this for, so some gaming like flight simulator, some stuff like that, and VR, this is right in the sweet spot where it needs to be. Picked up
now this seems like an expensive price for this, because you can get these at Best Buy like today for $389. Like right now on Best Buy, 3060 is $389. Pick it up tomorrow.
Well, that's a better price than I saw out there. Because when I went to look on Best Buy for those this weekend, I couldn't find anything local.
Oh, okay.
And I wasn't seeing anything in that.
It's amazing
price.
how much just a few days difference can.
Yeah,
they were probably stocking up for Black Friday. So what'd you get yours for?
So here's $399.
Okay, and it was that used or new?
That is new.
Okay,
OEM, right? So it's going to come. It's an OEM. It's going to come in a pretty.
So $10 more, right? Not a big deal.
Yeah. I think so. Here's what I was, Mike. Here's what I was kind of going after is this version, these Rev 2s of these cards, and this card that I'm looking at right now. Yesterday, so last night was $439. Today, it's $539. So overnight they went up $100. So the story was, so last night I'm talking to a friend and I was talking to him. I was lamenting about how I was struggling to buy this card. And she says, just buy the stupid thing. Stop overthinking it. Right. So I go to buy it and I realized I bought the wrong card. So I was like, later I went back, I just kind of pulled the trigger while I was talking to her and I bought the wrong card. Spent $40 or $50 too much. So I thought, well, I'll cancel it and then I'll just buy the other one tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Come down here, see if the cancellation had gone through. It took a full 24 hours for Amazon to cancel the order. And I haven't checked on the refund yet. I'm sure that'll be coming here in the next day or two. But I look at this card, is $100 more. I said, on that. So
did Bob and Ryan talk about, I get Rev 1 versus Rev 2, but is it worth the extra $200 for Rev 2? Because I mean, like I said, so I'm looking at the NVIDIA GeForce 3060 from MSI, 389, right?
Yeah.
From Best Buy. Pick it up tomorrow.
And MSI has been the cheaper end of things.
Yeah,
so that's,
and
yeah.
I can't remember which one I have. I have one of the 2-fan models. I have a 3060 Ti as well. 8 gigs, 3060 Ti, 2-fan model. Man, I game for 7-8 straight hours, I think, and have had no thermal issues, nothing. So I think you'll be more than happy with what you ended up buying. I don't think the Rev 2 is going to make that much of a difference to justify.
No, I agree.
Double the cost. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. You know, there's the Rev 2 and then there's the new there's the new X that's coming here on the 3060s. I think I'm okay. Like for what I wanted, for the card I wanted, for the price I wanted, Mike, I was kind of done. I had spent so much time thinking about this. I was like, okay, that's the card I want, reasonable price, $399. Let's do this thing.
And a year ago, you would have been paying $700 for that same card. Like that's the crazy part is we've now seen a pullback on GPU prices, which is fantastic. Now, the good news is too, you probably are not worried about mining because of Ethereum moving to 2.0 and not being able to mine. So the LHR card, like my biggest regret on mine was that it was LHR. So when I was trying to mine on it, it was without a bunch of tomfoolery. It was really restricted. Then I was like, you know what? I'm going to stop worrying about mining. And it's just a great gaming card. And for VR, it's going to be perfect. Like that 3060 Ti is unless you're going 40 series, is the true sweet spot on gaming. You know, I think they've proven time in and time out, unless you're going 3080 and going to spend double the price, you know, really between this and the 3070, the 3060 Ti, I think is a phenomenal choice on GPU.
I was pretty close to going 3070. In 3070 Ti with the new chips, with the new chipset, $700-800. So it would have been double.
Yeah,
what we're doing. And later, and I just bought this today. So earlier today, I was like, no, I'm just going to go with this. Joe says it's an EVGA, which if it is, I don't see that on there, Joe. But maybe as I dig into it a little bit, it says it's somewhere in here. There's
that doesn't look a Founder series, so I would assume it's EVGA. The Founder series are more blocky in look.
So if it is, there is a little bit of worry because they're not doing cards anymore. So they've got out of that. So I guess I hadn't thought all the way through that one. Bob says install Camel or Keepa, both track pricing and trends.
You're good.
Yeah.
It's been a rock solid for me. This is the one I got.
And I'll be honest with you. I'll probably buy something new before this thing goes out. So hopefully we'll see how it goes. You never know. Hey, $400.
Gotta be like me. When that thing next year, Jim, is $435, you sell it. Okay. Like promise me. I'm gonna message you and be like, you gotta do the mic thing. You gotta go. You use it for 6 months. I'll tell you when. You sell it. You buy something new.
You just tell me when.
It's the way.
I'm just gonna follow your
Joe's referring to my card because actually Joe knows. I forgot. Joe was the one who got in line. He had already bought one. He got offered that one. He offered it to me. He said, hey, I came up in the queue. Do you want to buy it? So yeah, Joe, I still appreciate that, by the way. I'm still running this card. It's fantastic.
Oh no, Joe's referring to your card. So,
so because he was, like I said, he was the one who got in line and his name got called and he'd already had one. So he said, Mike, do you want to buy it? I said, I would definitely want to buy it.
Okay, good to know. I thought maybe you guys knew. I didn't do all the digging on this. On this card, they say
you're going to be more than happy with that card, Jim. That is a fantastic card. And like I said, for $10 more than you get it, what's the difference?
Yeah.
So long as you actually get what you
brand
paid
new.
For. Yeah,
brand new, unused, unopened, undamaged.
Yeah,
packaging should be the same as retail. So pretty excited about that. So that'll come in next week. Later next week, and I can start it. But Ryan had to remind me. So he's like, so what are you going to do for a card? And I said, well, I'll just run it off the board for, this is one of those areas where it's
and he's
helpful.
Like, no, you won't.
He goes,
now with Ryzen, no, you won't.
Yeah. He's like, that's Intel thinking.
Yeah. Right, there's there. No internal GPU.
I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, there's sockets back there. And he's like, yeah, no, that's
on certain Ryzen cards, they do have the internal GPU. but not on the high end
chips,
cards.
right? On the the
Yeah, so
Ryzen chips.
Yeah, well, on certain Ryzen chips, they do have an internal one. On the lower end
Right,
ones, they do
right,
have that. That's why you still have HDMI ports and display ports on the motherboard, because on some of the, but not on the higher end ones. And I will just say, so Bob, you asked earlier, how do I share some of these? How do I share my GPU with multiple? The answer is Docker, right? So sharing your GPU with TDAR and Plex, share it with Docker. There's also, if you're running Unraid or any other platform, but there's a really good script out there publicized for Unraid. There is a script to unlock essentially the NVENC encoder so that you can go beyond the 3 limit max. So those consumer grade cards, unless you went Quadro series, are limited to 3 transcodes. There is a script you can easily run to unlock that. So for example, when I download a whole new show and it's cranking through, it might be running I limit it to 3. So TDAR is running 3, Plex can do 5, and then Deep Stack can use another process. So I can do like 8 encoder sessions all at once beyond the 3. So if you need that, PM me, I can send you the link, but there's publicized unlocks for those. So for those of you running this sort of stuff in Unraid, that's what you should look for. It sounds like Bob, actually, he just posted, he's running the Quadro, the P4000. So you don't need that unlock because those Quadro series of the cards, I think, are fully unlocked. You can do as many encoder streams as you want. Yep.
I don't know what you said there, but it sounded smart.
Gotta love the tinker mentality. All of a sudden, I put that thing in there, and I was like, "Wait, why is it only doing 3? I have 3 Plex things wanting to do Plex things, and TDAR's wanting to do its thing, and Deep Stack wanting to do its thing, and it's not letting it. So you have to unlock it on the 10. I'm running it, like I said, I'm running a 1060 on mine.
So that's the build, right? I think those are all the parts. At least at this point, I'll put Windows 10 or Windows 11 on it. We'll do some benchmark testing. I'm going to test it with the stock fan. Stock fan is on it came with the 5600X came with a fan. I'm going to test
on the cooler.
The cooler. Yeah.
I'm
going to test it. Why not? Bob's sending, or Ryan's sending me
you'll
cooler.
want the other one. The stock ones. Yeah. Stock ones runs pretty hot. Runs really hot.
No, for sure. Yeah. But I'd like to test it out. I'll spend probably, once I get the GPU in and I can hook up a monitor, I'm going to have to upgrade the board. I have to upgrade the BIOS. Likely. I have to see what version they have on there. But the 5600X isn't supported on that board without a BIOS upgrade. It may have been factory done or not. I still got to check at this point.
If you do, no, I don't have that old chip anymore. So I used to have, because you had to run an old gen Ryzen, something it would boot with to run the upgrade.
The board's got a USB port just for BIOS.
Yeah, but it won't even boot. That's the thing. Okay. So if you just bought it, it'll be fine to run the Ryzen 5600. Yeah. I did run into that though, where mine supported it with a BIOS upgrade, but it won't even boot to get to the BIOS upgrade process without an old gen Ryzen. Ryzen used to, they had a program. This is what I did. They will ship you an old Ryzen as long as you promise to ship it back. For free, you pay like a $60 like hold my card fee, and then as long as you ship it back within 2 weeks, they just remove the charge. Okay. But you'll be, if you just bought it, you'll be fine.
By the way, Ryan said the other day when I was get to the point where I realized I needed an actual GPU to get video off this thing, his first statement to me was, well, like Wieger will have a GPU you can borrow.
I do. If you need one, I have one. And you used to be the extra GPU guy. I know. And now I can be your extra GPU. And the other thing you'll want to do, just in case anyone hasn't mentioned it, especially for you for gaming, and this is important for everyone in chat, upgrade the BIOS, number 1. Just do that. Enable resizable bar. So a resizable bar is a BIOS setting. And for gaming these days is extremely important. Essentially allows you, and I am not going to get this right because I'm not a technical guy, but it allows the system to have full access to the GPU VRAM instead of in chunks. And so resizable bar is a really important setting. Even if you guys today, like a lot of people are running gaming rigs and they haven't changed any settings in their BIOS for years, go in, upgrade your BIOS and just turn on resizable bar. It is a huge performance upgrade. Like massive. If you're an FPS guy and you want frames and you're trying to track those frames, you'll love turning on resizable bar.
Well, so here's what I've learned. When I'm firing this thing up, you need to be here. So like I'll have to figure out like how to
Let's
get you
do
over
it.
here.
Yeah.
I'll reward you with a cigar and some whiskey,
Ooh,
and
yeah. We can
you
crack
know,
open that Jefferson's Ocean you got back there. That
I've
sounds
got
good.
some. It's open. We don't
Okay,
have to
there we
crack
go.
it.
There we
It's
go.
open, so
Okay, good.
it's a fairly standard thing in our house. Bob thinks he's going to slip in. He says we'll slip in an RGB mouse on Jim. He'll never notice. And then Joe says the dedicated USB flash port is not dependent on the CPU.
Oh,
So
awesome. That's
yeah,
a new thing since I did it. So that's great. So I was
yeah.
proven incorrect. That's good.
No,
So
no
you
worries,
can
no worries.
just boot it off that
Seemingly,
USB.
I haven't tried it. I haven't tried it
Okay,
yet,
good to
but
know.
it would. And then, of course, yeah, bring some band-aids when you come over because I seem to want to cut myself whenever I do this. Mike, so the next thing that I'm thinking about then is I need a gaming monitor, right? I
Yes,
know I just don't. All my monitors, I know I've got 9 down
you need
here,
one.
and but they're old. They're all
Yeah.
they're 1080p for the most part. Even this 34-inch ultra wide, when I bought it for the Mac, I knew it was gonna be for podcasting. I got it for like $187. Like it was super cheap, and it's 60 hertz, it's 1080p, it's whatever 2024. I've got that written down somewhere. 24 something by 1080, right?
Yeah.
But I knew that was gonna be good enough, but as I'm going into this setup, I'm kinda like, I've got some juice. It would seem pretty stupid to run that on a really crappy monitor, like on a
Yeah.
really crappy 1080p. I don't know if I wanna go full 4K at this point, but I am thinking about 1440,
Yeah. Well,
right?
so to give you some context for your 3060 Ti, so the great part is we're running essentially the same hardware, right? So I can give you some benchmarks.
Yeah.
When I am gaming, especially flight sim and those sort of things, so for me, I am actually running a 1080p monitor, but it's a 144 hertz. So your hertz, think of that, it's essentially your refresh rate. So the frames per second you're getting, as long as your hertz or 144 hertz is greater than the frames you're getting, you're good. And so for me, that 3060 Ti, when I am running 1080p on like Call of Duty Warzone or Flight Sim, I'm always below 144. Now, what that means is I would love to go 1440, and I think you should. If you're going to buy a monitor, go 1440. But what it means is you don't need a 1440 200 plus hertz monitor because your GPU will never even hit that. You could do a 1440p 144 hertz and you will be just fine because I don't even hit 144 hertz in a lot of my games. Now, if you're running like Counter-Strike, yes, you're going to go above 144 frames per second. But in all the games you're playing, your VR and those sort of things, I think you'll be just fine with a 1440p 144 hertz monitor. I game down it because I like the way you're seeing me, how close I am to my monitor. This is how I game. So for me, 1440, and I'm not doing the really pretty games. I'm doing shooters. So I really didn't care about 1440 versus 1080. You're doing pretty games, right? Like Flight Sim. Having 1440 will be amazing. Like that'll look
Yeah.
so good. So I would go with that, but I wouldn't waste your money on going above 140 hertz. I just don't think you'll get the benefit unless you think in the future you're going to upgrade beyond the 3060 Ti. Like if you're going to go to a 4000 series card and you're going to get 180 frames at 1440p, then maybe spend the money. But other than that, you might be able to spend a little less on your monitor. But do you have anything in mind yet? Like, have you looked
Yeah.
around?
Yeah, amazingly, I've been looking at some of these. So I'm really kind of trying to decide between going with a 27-inch 1440. So
Yep. That's
and
perfect. Look at that. 144 hertz. It falls right in. Like it's like we had this conversation before you even
we
got
didn't,
on.
by the way, we
We
didn't.
didn't actually. Yeah, we haven't talked at all. This is
So it's
great.
an LG Ultra Gear QHD 27-inch gaming monitor. IPS,
Yep. IPS is good. If you're not
HDR10.
going to go OLED, IPS is good.
Yeah, I don't know if I need OLED, just
I
to be
didn't go
honest with you,
OLED.
right?
I was
Price
just,
point
yeah.
280 on this, right? And these are I'm not going to buy these this week. These are monitors I'm going to kind of watch. I've been reconfigure. I know I'm going to put something in here. There's been some suggestions in chat, go with the 43 inch. Gigabyte has a 43-inch OLED. I don't have enough desk space for 43 inches. I don't even have enough desk space for 34 inches at this
Yeah.
point. I think I can sneak in a 27. here. I will definitely be looking, and the reason I'm looking at this one is it has an adjustable stand. So I want to make sure I don't want to have to buy. I have a bunch of monitor stands on here, and I really just would rather get one that I can
Yeah.
use the stand, move the
And to
thing
be
to
honest,
make it
you're going to be
fit,
doing a lot
right?
of VR, which is the monitors on your face, so it doesn't matter.
Correct.
Like, so for
Correct.
you, if
Yeah.
you this is mainly a VR rig, this is going to be perfect for what you need. And I think too, as you start to look at the OLED versus IPS, I think you're going to be fine with IPS, and I think you'll totally love 1440p 144. Yeah, and most monitors come with this nowadays, so you don't have to worry about it. But in case you're looking, G-Sync for you, since you're doing an NVIDIA GPU, is important. G-Sync is essentially if your frame rate's not matching up with your hertz or your refresh rate, you don't have screen tearing. And stuff like Flight Simulator, that actually is really important because you might end up spiking and getting a little bit higher frame rate in the game. And so it's going to look a lot better. Like G-Sync, I have found is a really, really good feature. So both of these that you've shown do have G-Sync, but just always something to keep in mind. And if you're an AMD person, V-Sync's really important. So yeah, I think that's a worthwhile feature to look for.
The other monitor, same space. This is a 27-inch 2K QHD, 2560 by 1440 IPS, 170 hertz, but it supports 144. This is the same Asus Tough Gaming brand that the board is. Now that's not why you buy these things, but I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it's one of those, again, adjustable monitor. I can move it around. They've got a variety of other options for it as well. This one's 320, so I've got it kind of just loaded up in my cart. This is, as I've been going through this process, I just put all these things in my cart and every day refresh the cart, and it tells me what prices have changed overnight or whatever on them. And I probably won't pull the trigger just yet, but I think maybe first of the year, if I can find a good deal, I'll probably pick up one of these.
Yeah, and I think both those look good. The other thing, like, and chat might disagree with me on this. I think HDR is one of those features you can take it or leave it. I think for someone who is not watching a lot of content, like if this is not a media consumption device for you, I turn off HDR and everything. Because a lot of games, it looks weird. You're not going to want it on, and you're fighting with it's on the desktop and off during games. So I have not. Now, I think both of those did have HDR and a good version of HDR. Those are both HDR 10. Which is a good version of HDR. It's not the early version, but I have never worried about having HDR on my monitor. I used to, thinking I would love it. I have turned it off on everything for my computer. I love HDR on TVs and like consumption devices, but on my PC where I'm gaming, hasn't been a big issue for me.
This is what I'm showing on screen right now. Of course, is a 34-inch curved. I'd have to do some real changes down here to get another 34-inch monitor in here. By the way, I really do want it. I'd want another 34-inch curve that's the same size as what I have here, or at least close, so that I've got that kind of wraparound feel that's going in. I have work monitors.
That's what VR's for, though.
No, right on. No,
yeah,
right on.
Yeah.
Right on. I'm not going to be in VR all the time, but this is $299, not G-Sync. This one is
FreeSync, which works pretty close. Like mine actually will pick up FreeSync on the NVIDIA card. They're not always compatible. Mine works because mine is not technically a G-Sync monitor. I have the Acer, and but it does still work with G-Sync.
I guess my point is we're in the golden age of monitors right now. Like it as a
when
monitor
have these ever
guy,
been this affordable?
as a monitor guy, I mean, I love monitors. I'm addicted to them. And now it's so hard looking at these to be like, maybe I'll stack. This is one of the thoughts that I had. So maybe I'll stack the 30. I'll get another 34-inch curved and stack it above the monitor that's up here, because to be honest with you, I won't be using it as much as I'm using the Mac monitor. I mean, I still plan on using the Mac full time, right? That's for podcasting, for what I do for work. It is literally the best podcasting machine you can buy for the price. So, I probably spent $2,000. I probably spent 2,500 or maybe close to 3,000 on all this stuff by the time I'm done. That actually pales in comparison to the Mac Mini. When you think about Well, I got that for $1,000. The monitor was $200.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you go, that sounds kind of PC pricing,
Yeah.
right? So don't plan to move away from the Mac anytime soon. This M1 has been dynamite for me. But Mike, if I got a 31 inch, like for $50, I can get a 31-inch pole and stack the monitors so that I've got the Mac on the bottom, the PC on top. That would actually work.
Yeah.
It would work pretty well.
Now, if you're gaming a lot, keep in mind ergonomics.
Right.
Because
Right. Yeah,
I
I'll
have
be
stacked
lifting
right
up.
now,
Yeah.
and I cannot imagine gaming on that top one. That top one is only for supplemental data that I need to look up at. But if I'm gaming, I want to be right up in it.
Well, and so the plan right now would be I've right in front of me is the 34-inch ultra wide, right? For the Mac, it's on the Mac, and it's 1080p. But again, I'm not gaming on it. It's productivity. In between, then all the way 90 degrees are going to be I've got three 1080p monitors I use for work. They're 24 inches each. So a lot of real estate for me. That works out really well for spreadsheets and those kinds of things. And I just picked up a new laptop stand so that the laptop will make it a cube, because the docking station I have only supports 3 monitors. So I'll have the laptop up on one corner, and then it'll make a perfect cube, and I'll slide that a little bit over to the right so I can get this either 27-inch or 34-inch kind of in between. And so I'll have podcasting / work in front of me. Just 45 degrees will be gaming and VR. 90 degrees will be dedicated to work. Four screen setup that I can do whatever I want there. I'm pretty excited about it. Like that. I know it's ridiculous. By the way,
that's not ridiculous. That is excitement factor right there. I love it.
It's pretty ridiculous. I've got a 24-inch touch monitor that I've had for a long time.
That was the kitchen PC, right?
It was a kitchen PC. He's talking
to me.
Right now, it doesn't have a home. So I was thinking, well, you put that on a stand and put it above the Mac. That can be where I watch movies. Because I can plug I've got an extra Fire TV stick that I can put in there. I can connect it to, the channels, and I can I can have TV going on that and this stuff going down here. It is perfect for me. I mean, that is just, and that I think that I need, that stand is a whole $40. So to get, something like that. So I don't know. I have to figure that out.
I love it. It.
Yeah. It's been pretty cool. Let's see if there's any chat out there. I'm going to need to Bob's point. If he had, he'd go with this 49-inch if he had a 6-inch wide desk, maybe. And, I've got an L-shaped desk. You can see the end of a monitor here, and it wraps around. There are straight monitors all the way to the end here, and there's no room on this side to put it. Surface runs the weather station, and I've got full-time weather up and running there where I can see it. That's actually, Mike, for me, that having weather or my radar up all the time in land or in portrait, not in landscape. So I turned it around so it'd be in portrait. It's almost like optimized for portrait. I can get the temperature, precipitation, hourly forecast, 10-day at a glance, video, detailed 10-day forecast, all on one screen where I can see it all the time. As a weather nerd, unbelievable. It is unfreaking believable. So got a little more work to do. That card will come in next week, and we'll set that up and then do some testing. And that the water cooler will come in, or the liquid cooler will. What do you call that?
AIO, all in one.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
An AIO.
That'll come in. That's a whole new world for me. So I'm gonna spend some time. I've never had a AIO before. So
it's mainly just a pain mounting it to the board because there's usually a different backplate. So it's not just screwing in a normal cooler. You have to replace the backplate. So holding the backplate on while screwing it in is kind of a hassle. Yeah. But the cooling aspects of it are phenomenal.
You can help me put it in when you come over.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
Bob says one more thing. He says, get a KVM so you can use all of those displays with multiple systems. I do. I have Synergy, which works on the Mac and PC. And it when the M1 came out, they wrecked they wrecked it. Synergy didn't work very well at first. Now it is freaking amazing. Like if you got a Mac and PCs and you want, I'd even run Synergy on just Windows PCs as opposed to mouse without borders. It's got this crazy discovery feature. So if you move things around and then fire stuff back up, it goes, "Hey, I discovered something new. Where do you want to put it?" And you just put it on the grid and boom, it works. I mean, it's
Those sort
totally
of
great.
like life improvement apps are my favorite.
Yeah, no, super great. Synergy is the name of that. I think I paid, I don't know, $35 for it or something like that. And we'll continue. That's one of those apps I have no problem kind of paying for. Mike, you got anything coming up as you think about Christmas or the new year? Anything you're hoping tech wise to get into as we kind of think about wrapping this thing up tonight? Thanks for staying late with me, by the way.
Yeah, no. Tech wise for me, it's been a lot around hunting. I know this time of year, every year you guys hear from me about hunting, right? Game cams. We've talked about them in the past. The last year we upgraded all cellular cameras. So my brother-in-law and I together, we manage my father-in-law's property for hunting, and so we're really big into all sharing cellular cameras in one account so we can see everything. So for me, it's actually been a big focus on getting the solar panels for those, because oftentimes you don't want to go back out, every 3 weeks to replace the batteries. So we use SpyPoint cameras. So SpyPoint has some built in. And now the great part about technology, Jim, is number one, the cost has come down. And number two, they've combined things into one. And what I mean by that is solar for game cameras. You used to have your solar panel that would run down to a battery box on the ground. It would charge a battery. That battery would run up to the camera. Now that battery is just built into the solar panel. So the solar panel is charging a battery on the back, and you plug that straight into the camera, and now you have 24/7 camera without having to replace the battery. So for me, I'm hoping for a few of those solar panels for the SpyPoint cameras, for my brother-in-law and I, to try and make sure we can keep those cameras out all year round, as opposed to him and I usually get them set up a few weeks before rifle season, and then we pull them down after he's done with black powder season. But we want to get them up just so we can just monitor year round. We love monitoring wildlife, and we get a bunch of really cool wildlife out there. We have bobcats, and there's been some mountain lion spottings in their area. So it'd be really cool if we get a mountain lion on cam down at the farm. So that's been our biggest tech push. Besides that, at some point, Jim, I just need to pull the trigger and upgrade my parity drive on Unraid to beyond 4 TB. So I need to just buy some 12, 16 terabyte drives, whether I shuck them, whether I don't. It's just really hard to buy like a $300 hard drive just for the parity. Like I'm not because in Unraid, right, you need to have your parity disk needs to be your larger disk. So to buy just 300 just to do that, and I don't even get any more space out of that. That's why I just keep freaking adding 4 TB drives. So now I have 9 data disks of 4 TB. I have an extra data disk just for the Blue Iris for storage. That means I have 10. Then I have 2 cache drives. So I need to upgrade. So those are my objectives for the next few months: is finally pull the trigger on upgrading the parity drive, and then also doing some solar on the game cams.
Would you go like with a 16 terabyte drive for
I
your
think so.
parity?
Because at that point, I wouldn't need 16 terabyte data disks, but I could go
Right.
up to 16, right? I could
No,
do
right on.
8, I could do
It'll
10s,
help you to grow.
12s. So I think my parity drive, I'm just going to drop the coin on the largest at the time, whether it be 16 or 20. That way I'm just future-proofed for whatever I want to do.
Bob says it is the one downfall, and I wouldn't say that. It's the feature that makes it work, right? I mean,
That you can have
I
any size drive. That's
agree
the
with you,
best part
Bob.
about it. Yeah.
Mentally, it's hard to get over when you're buying this drive that you just see as doing nothing. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's doing a lot, actually, right? I mean, it's your parity drive, so it's doing a lot.
And
But it's
Bob
not
says
one of
buying 2, so he must run double parity. I only run single parity on 9 data drives plus the parity. So on a 10 disk array, I'm only running single parity. I know that probably gives you guys all probably the heebie-jeebies, but I've already gotten it. I got a lot of offsite, and if, like I said, most of all that data is media that I can pretty easily get back.
I bought a lot of my 4 terabyte drives on eBay, and I got them, as they were coming off of enterprise things. I wonder if, you're looking at 180
That's not
probably
bad.
for a 16 terabyte drive.
That's
right
that's
now.
way better than what they are new. New, those are 300 plus. So
yeah,
Bob's got 90 terabytes. So yes, he does run double parity. So fair enough, Bob. I'm only at 30 terabytes.
Yeah,
So
I have 83. I have 83
you really?
terabytes. Yeah, it's stupid.
All
so
going towards still the
stupid.
mining of
Oh yeah,
those projects.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's a whole nother show.
Yeah.
We should,
Yeah.
we should. I guess should get you back, and we should talk about a little bit about because I'm
Yeah.
still
Let's do another
doing,
run in January too. I'd love to come
still
back
doing.
in
Yeah, get
January and do this.
shoot me a date that's open for you, and
Yeah.
let's get you back in here because I've got some thoughts on this. Listen, I got 83 terabytes that they're all dedicated to crypto, but I'm kind of like that's really slowing down, and I'm kind of thinking like, well, I have enough. If it's gonna go somewhere, keeping what I have is not gonna add any more to it. So if it's all of a sudden gonna spike and go, I probably have everything I'm gonna get. I could probably start moving. I went through this, and this will be the last thing as we wrap this up. I went through this process where I'm like, maybe I should get some 10 or 8 drive Orco boxes where I pull these out of because I've got them all jammed in my PCs.
Yep.
And I'm like, Joe sent me some super micro 5 bays that go in 3 that I've got them in, right? I think one PC's got 16 drives in it, right? And I was like, well, maybe I consolidate those. Now, during Black Friday, I could have gotten a single 8-bay Orco box for $150. That's not terrible. Would have taken 3 or 2, maybe 3. That's $450 or 300, depending on what you get. And you're like, is it worth it? Like, am I ever going to see $300 worth of value out of?
Yeah.
Now, it would look beautiful. Like
Right,
I
right.
felt good about like stacking these boxes up with hard drives in them and just plug in USB in. And then I thought, yeah, I don't need to do that. Actually, I shouldn't. That's dumb. I shouldn't even be thinking about that. So there's plenty. Chia drove tons of large base solutions out there that are beautiful. I don't need them. I just don't. I want them. Don't get me wrong. I want
It
them.
would look
I just don't.
fantastic, but the price
It would
like,
look great.
Yeah.
But I think, God, this is hard for me. You know how hard it is for me to get rid of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So thinking about pulling these drives and selling them, I'm gonna need some intervention, Mike Wieger. I'm gonna need some.
I'll
Mike
come over and just
Wieger
do it for
magic.
you. I'm just gonna take them home and sell them and send you a check.
Sell them to me, sell them for me, and then you can Venmo me.
There we go.
The difference between the two. Well, Mike, always great. It's great having you back. I just really,
Great
it's
being
just
back.
so much fun to spend time with you. Thanks for walking through the build with me on this. I hadn't really spent much time talking. I mean, I've alluded to it here and there, but a beginning to end is kind of what we did tonight. Probably won't spend too much more time talking about it. Ed Sullivan, who's a good friend of mine. I meet with him on the weekends. He said, man, when we first started this build, he's like, you're going to get a lot of mileage out of this build, aren't you? I'm like, well, I'm going to spend a couple $1,000. So yeah, probably some topics coming. That card will come in. We'll set it up, get it rolling. I probably won't spend too much more time talking about it. The next thing, Mike, is a headset.
Oh,
a
yeah.
VR headset.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. Whenever you do that, let me know.
I think that's a February. I think I'm going to get through get this PC set up, get it the way I want it, spend some time looking at an Oculus the Quest is probably the way to go just out the chute to get into it. I'm going to need to get some inserts for my glasses and some of those kinds of things. So, I've got a few expensive. They're not terribly expensive, but it's about the price of a video card.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and I don't have the most space down here, but I do have some. So I'll have to get that, I'll look dorky as I'll get out with this big headset on, waving my arms around.
That's what I'm waiting for, Jim. Honestly, when you're talking about the monitor, I'm waiting for you to say, actually, this build is going in the living room and it's going to be dedicated VR and gaming. It doesn't even go down here. And our living room now is
yeah.
Because,
I think
Linus from Linus Media, his workout is playing Beat Saber. Like that's and that is his workout for the day. Like it's a workout machine. It's everything. So I'm excited to see where this goes for you.
Yeah. Well, or maybe I put it on the treadmill and I can be walking on the treadmill while I'm doing VR. So good stuff. Well, Mike, thanks for coming out. We'll remind everybody, thanks for your Patreon support. If you haven't joined us on Patreon yet and you want to do that, I encourage you to. I appreciate it. Value. If we're adding value, you can give it back. theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. Don't forget, Christian's doing a bang up job over there at Maple Grove Partners. If you need some hosting service, he can do it for you. I shouldn't say this because it's not true. He can't do anything, but he can do most things. So contact him, maplegrovepartners.com. Plans start as little as $10 a month. I should probably look at my notes. I've had enough bourbon that I probably shouldn't rely. If you want to contact the show, you can send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. This is the part where I used to say, you can contact Mike, but don't. He's not here anymore. He's just coming in from time. Although
if you ping me on Discord, you might get a response. I will say maybe.
Yeah.
Like if you at me on our Discord channel, so that is the best way for you guys now to get a hold of me. Even Twitter, I'm not that great at checking. So adding me on Discord, probably the best chance. Go to our Discord server.
If you want to join our Discord group, go to theaverageguy.tv/Discord. I try not to make it too hard. Theaverageguy.tv/Discord. Jump in there. Love to have you. Some great conversations in Discord. I mean, I'm finding Discord very, very in the bizarre world that has become Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying kind of our Discord group. And speaking of that, the Home Server Show forums are going to get Dave's coming on next week, and we'll talk a little bit about this, but he's closing those down as of December 15th. So if you are on Home Server Show, he's probably told you by now, but if you're just hearing that from me and you want to join a group that's a lot like that group was, not as active, but still is nice, head over to theaverageguy.tv/Discord, and we would love to have you as part of our community. We don't do as much, but it's not as much chatter either. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern. Like I mentioned, Dave is coming up. Aaron Lawrence is right behind Dave, and we're going to talk about some gadgets for Christmas. Like I mentioned, next Wednesday, I'll be on thinkcomputers.org talking about some Christmas gifts. But we're live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv/live. Thanks for coming out tonight. We'll do a smidgen of post show. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody. Dude, thanks, man.
Yeah, love being out here, dude. It's so much fun.
That was fun to roll through. I am not good, I'll be honest, by myself running through what we did tonight. I get done with it and I'm like, that sucks. But you know how to, like, it's always helpful to have somebody on the other side.
It totally is. Adding some context into there, some questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you've got a bunch of these parts too, which is
it's you literally that build is this before the only difference is my CPU and I upgraded it last December. We have the same exact build almost. Except for when I upgraded my CPU. But I'm very used to it.
It's probably a little cheaper than what you paid for it back.
Probably. Then. Honestly, probably. Yeah. Yeah, Bob, feel free to ping me on Discord about split. It's honestly, I don't know if you're running Unraid or not, but it's as easy as in the Docker. You can just tell every single Docker to go access the GPU. So it's not even splitting it. Like you don't have to allocate anything. It just gives full access.
It knows where it's at.
Right? It knows where it's at. It's almost like running an app on Windows, and Windows has the GPU in it. Everything is just like, oh, sweet, you have a GPU? I'll go use it. So pretty simple. But yeah, if you need specifics or if you need the Docker items in the config, just let me know. Happy to help.
We should try to do a January or early February show with you, and then I should get with Jonathan and schedule a February March Unraid, and then get you back so the three of us can do that together.
Yeah. Yep.
That would be good. Yeah, Bob says he's never done more than one.
Yeah, that's the best part about Docker. You can just tell them all. So like TDAR, Plex, Deep Stack. I'm trying to think of all of my Dockers that utilize my one GPU and Unraid. All those, I just say, hey, here's the GPU, and they all just have at it, and it works great. Yeah. Now you can't pass it then through to a VM, so just know that, like, if you're using it in Docker, you're using it in Docker, and you can't. If you pass it through to the VM takes full control of it. So that's probably where you're coming from, is like usually splitting it from a VM. It's different. You either give it to all the Dockers or you give it to a VM. It's not one or the other, or it is one or the other. It's not the same. It's not both.
You okay on time? Can I
I got like 10 minutes. I do have to work a little. I have a document I got to get out to a boss.
No worries. Let me bend you for 5 minutes. I just want to tell you how you influenced me tonight. So I think I hadn't thought this all the way through, but I think what I'm going to do is once I get the new system up and running, and I'll move what I need to move off of that 4770, get that completely kind of consumed so I can format it. And then I think that becomes the new Unraid box.
I think that's great. Yeah.
And, I may even think about a cheap GPU for that, to be able to try to find a cheap 1060 somewhere where I could, or 2060, where I could pass through, so it's got some kind of processing. I
Yeah.
don't need a
Well, and that
ton.
thing has quick sync. You got to remember. So you've already got a little bit, right? Like
Yeah.
now it's
Yeah.
the older gen, so it's not great quick sync.
Right,
But like depending on what you're needing a GPU for, the great part about you running Intel in that 4770 is that you can use quick sync for a decent amount of things. Probably
Yeah.
not much because it's an older gen chip, but you might be able to save and then be like, okay, do I need like run it for a little bit and then later be like, do I need the 1060 or 2060?
Yeah.
Whatever?
Do I need, I'm not running Plex because I use channels. And
Right.
Well,
So you
and
might not
I'm
even
running channels on that box right now and it runs perfectly.
Yeah, so you're good.
Like, yeah. You're right. I might be in there. So I think that's the direction. I hadn't thought all the way through that, but I think that's the direction I'm going to go. Put Unraid as the base on that, build
Yeah.
that thing up, make a great box for it.
You can run a
build it
Windows
out.
VM if you want another Windows
yeah,
machine. Like you could,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, it could probably handle 1 or 2 more Windows machines based on what
Yeah,
it's
probably
got
one plus a lot of Dockers.
32 gig of RAM. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be great.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Because my Blue Iris VM, I only give 8 gigs of RAM, and it runs Blue Iris like a dream. So like my Windows VM only has 8 gigs.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yep,
that makes sense. I like to give it 16 these days if I'm going to use it for any reason.
Yeah.
So that's just when I thought about.
If I was actually on and logged into it more and like running things on it, for sure you'd want 16.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, guys, if you're listening live, hang tight for me one sec, Mike. If you guys are listening live, we'll see you next Thursday. McCabe is back, and there'll be a lot of woodworking and some some lamenting over the home server show stuff. We'll ask him a few questions about the beginning because I wasn't there in the beginning, but I was pretty close, and so we'll spend a little time. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.